your slot in the finals of the World Championship. Register right now.
Games, and of course, I think I just joined in rather late, but hey, we'll deal with the production issues. We're kind of doing this one right on the fly. As I was going to say, welcome back to the World of Electronic Sports Games. It, of course, is myself, Flakes, doing this one somewhat on the fly, as we're pretty damn tired, to be honest, but managed to bribe Sasha, MVP producer, to stick around. And let us hop onto the middle portion, pretty much early days of this second map between Team EndpointGG and Fish123, of course, two pretty good UK teams in the UK, Icelandic and Ireland qualifiers who are going to be looking to do their piece, making sure they try and gun for that qualification spot. And a bit of a recap so far, Overpass 16-14 in favour of Endpoint, a very, very close and intense series. Was one hell of a match to watch, and it's pretty much a shame we didn't quite get to witness it. Of course, we were watching some great Russian action, making sure we crown one of our qualification spots. Of course, jumping into this round, that is Fish in a very, very strong scenario, certainly putting the work on the T side of Cash as they bring it to a 5 versus 2. Jake and Phil are going to be trying to do the work here, but unfortunately their save attempts are going to be cut rather short, as they will be dropping like flies. Phil, the last man left remaining, got a P250. Opportunity for him to do some work respectively in terms of dropping a couple of rifles here and there, but it's pretty damn tough, and he's getting pushed in from Aaron, who's just going to knock him down, leaving with really no opportunity to be running for the hills. So a 6-2 scoreline. It is a bit of an interesting one in itself, but one thing for sure is the players, they seem to be enjoying themselves, and that is something that does sit rather acutely with players from the UK. Of course, we all tend to have a bit of a laugh and enjoy it and that sort of thing. I think you kind of get the gist at this point. Of course, in terms of response in this round, we do get to see a little bit more coming out from Endpoint, as they've got themselves some rifles across the board. They've got the AWP as well, which is certainly something I'm excited to be seeing from Endpoint in terms of can they claw things back. Of course, Fish, they've put in a pretty good effort in terms of getting it to 6, but it's not necessarily the halfway there marker just yet. They have a lot of work to do if they want to secure this half to go into their favour. As Endpoint going to be looking to find themselves a pick. Their goal on their CT side is to play nice and passive, just try and force the hand a little bit. Zemi will be playing ever so close to Checkers. Of course, he is backed up by his partner in crime, Philo, holding the AWP ever so patiently, just waiting for that cross to come in from Weber, who is going to be just almost shoulder peeking the ankle, waiting that moment to come through. As he's trying to do some work towards that fight. The first going to be going for the second cryptic Stefani and then pick up the trade. Still somehow making it work, finds another frag on towards Philo, and at this point the T-side doing exceptional work. Money Max going to find a track respectively on towards Mole. Aaron to fight back and find one on towards Jake, as Max going to be diving through this in the bomb, most importantly, coming up the second straight through the edge on towards Weber. Huge plays being made as he clutches it back to a 1 versus 1. Aaron, 27 HP, has got the rifle, got the incendiary grenade, could potentially throw on through the window and over towards that side to try and force a position. When you look at Max, he's holding from Baby Pit, going to be peeking out a little bit wider, and this is huge stuff coming from Max now. He could make this one work, but Aaron flings around the corner, lands a shot on towards the shoulder, and clutches the team out. Clutches the round out, I guess, is the more acute way to word things. Of course, you'll have to bear with me, guys. We're a bit tired at this point. It's been a pretty long day, casting a fair few games. But we thought, you know, we'll do our best to make sure we can deliver you some of the UK qualifiers. Of course, we'll be doing the grand finale of the UK qualifiers tomorrow to crown our winner of this qualification. And most importantly, the winner who will be flying over towards Kiev. All expenses paid, of course, to do one hell of a qualification run if they can win the games, frankly. But of course, in terms of this round, it is just Endpoint limited with these pistols. They've got themselves the CZs, got some P250s. The best option they've got is trying to find a couple of rifles here and there, but it's going to be a pretty difficult task. I think that would be fairly apparent at this point. As Fish, they've been exceptional, cutting them off in a quick stand, but dropping them one by one. Snake only peeking out with the rifle. Gonna almost expected him to go a bit aggressive towards Car, but he won't actually be backing up Cryptics, diving out, just clearing angles. Ezio going to find one on towards Null, so a bit more being done as Phil going to find another one on towards Cryptic, so making it much, much closer. As then you're going to find a long-range CZ shot on towards Rattlesnake. Bringing it to a 1 versus 2, so all potentially possible. But Weber to tap on away and eventually drop him to the floor. So an 8-2 scoreline. Fish doing very, very well so far. Endpoint seemingly struggling, which in comparison to the performance on the first map is pretty damn different. But of course it's pretty early days so far. Wouldn't really want to count them out just yet. In terms of Byron, they've got a good chunk of money to play with now off the back of things, so this is going to be that repetitive force-up, never-ending cycle, and double-up setup on towards Max and Philo could potentially do quite a lot of work in terms of knocking down the picks on towards the T side. However, if you almost do a bit of analysis onto the way that Fish have been playing, double ops don't necessarily bode too well. They haven't really been going for many individual pushes. They've been kind of just playing a bit of a default, not really been going for too many other faces, and then leading together as a pack on toward the site, which we're seeing come full circle. It's where Max going to find himself at least one pick through the cracks, not before he's receiving a lot of damage from the frag grenades. Eventually, when we drop by Rattlesnake, Ezio going to find another one on towards Mole. So certainly going to make things a little bit more competitive. Is Jake to find a frag on towards Weber as he brings it full circle back to a 4 versus 2. Cryptics lurking in the shadows, 80 HP, backed up by Rattlesnake, who's on a simmering 6, which is by no means a positive number to find yourself in. So Cryptic's peeking down towards Highway. Unfortunately, quick on the trigger. He knocks him down. It's all going to be on Cryptics, a 1 versus 3, burning away in the flames, just trying to fan them, trying to keep himself alive, but it's not going to be enough. Jake going to mop him up. All the fuse is going to roll on in, but most importantly, the double ops, they actually work, which in a retake manner, so that's a bit hilarious in itself, so huge props to Endpoint doing the job, and wasn't really too many frags being found. Imi actually not doing anything at all, practically, just almost being a bit of a supporting man, throwing a bit of nades and such. The flashbangs were pretty much on point, especially the Molotov there as well. Didn't quite catch on to who threw the Molotov, but that was pretty damn smart. Either way, we are going to be going into our 12th round. Fish still perched on 8. Endpoint are going to be trying to claw this one back, and you kind of do a bit of a throwback and you look at how things are swung. It's been relatively good for Endpoint in terms of the first map performance, but this still isn't quite what I was expecting in terms of a CT side. Maybe that's the problem. Max working things up, immediately finding towards Mole. Jake to find the frag on towards Aaron. This is looking pretty damn much of a whitewash round. These rifles just being zoned off. As it is just Weber, one man standing all on an island. A lot of work to do for a 1 versus 5. Looking pretty damn brutal for him at this point. Endpoint coming up Trump with a pretty huge round. It seems the individual picks have been something that Fish has kind of fell back to in this round, and well, they were dropped like flies. So I'm kind of hoping that Fish fall back to their default, which wasn't really featuring too many faces, or over faces, should I say, and then go for the almost team-like plays. As Weber knows that going for the bomb at this point is a little too much to ask, as he just bides his time ever so patiently in the shadows over towards that B site. He's got himself the AWP, has quite a good chunk of utility as well that he hasn't really expended, so saving this is huge value for Fish if he can get away with it. But 45 seconds, it is a very, very big ask. But Endpoint, they're playing this one ever so precariously, not wanting to lose anything at all, just really hiding in the corners, which means that Weber might actually have a chance. Clock going to be ticking on down, not too much really taking place, just Weber still holding this angle now, and Endpoint really are playing extremely static. So their economy is by no means patchy, that's a point in itself. But I'm kind of surprised they haven't at least set aside 2 rifles to try and go for this one, looking towards Jake and perhaps Ezio, just go aggressive, try and do some damage, because the value they would gain from taking down Weber would be relatively huge. However, it feels like that's not quite going to be the case just yet, as he is still just going to be sitting ever so daintily in the corner as we come down to the last couple of seconds of this round. So we look towards this next round now, and we kind of see Endpoint starting to bring this one back into favor, an 8-4 scoreline, which is much, much better for the CT side to work with. And you can see what I'm talking about when it comes down to economy. You've got $5,600 in the bank of Philo, which is quite a lot of money for a CT side. It would have easily been able to replace a rifle, so very surprised that at least Jake or Ezio didn't decide to go on a hunt. Emi potentially could have done some work for himself, but he's necessarily not got the most clear-cut economy of them all. Fish in this round are going to be looking to finally hammer this one home and pick up their 9th. They've got themselves the AWP on Mole, which is a spectacle in itself. Mole is a player that, he's not the most consistent player in terms of, you know, UK players alike, but he does quite a lot of damage in terms of AWP, and I'm kind of very much excited to see what he can bring to the table, whether he can land the shots. And while you speak of him, he shall appear. Cryptics over towards this A site, trying to rattle off a couple through this door, seeing if anything will come his direction. It's not quite going to be happening in terms of bearing any rewards just yet. The answer will be a flat-out no. But an opportunity, nonetheless, will arise in terms of a couple more picks. Imi over towards this B site. Potentially could find a frag on towards Weber, but he's given away just a streak of information as Weber ever so quietly towards the back of Toxic, just really going to be biding his time. And I do like the style of play being brought to the table. It's very much different to see this from a couple of these players, because the thing we see quite commonly with the UK is a lot of just uncut aggression. Very much uncontrolled a lot of times. It will be a 1-for-1 trade. Imi to go aggressive. Cryptics picks up his own Mole to find another one towards Ezio, so still battle them forward, but it's favouring Fish in this scenario. 3 versus 2. Imi and Philo, the last 2 players left remaining for Endpoint. And they have really not too much information to work with. Their best bet is to kind of rely on the call coming from Philo. Trust him, because they should have just spotted the bomb. And it's going to be a full committal push on towards the A site. are they going to be able to do anything in terms of stopping this plant? The answer is going to be a flat out no. The Molotov will pop off, meaning Cryptix has to pop a bit of a defensive flash and try and escape. Not quite really bear any dividends just yet, as now Imi getting ever so close to precariously push through the site, just taking it step by step. As the bomb is going to be ticking away. We need to see something a little bit better coming out now from Endpoint if they want to even think about going for this, because they've only managed to find a pick respectively. Mole going to peek in from A main, being ever so slow, and Imi now, well, so many angles to check, not enough time to pull this one off. Going to be trying to go for the peek in towards A main, runs out of ammo on towards Mole, and that is just devastating to witness. Finishes it off with a USP, but he has to find Aaron in a matter of seconds, and he knows that the answer is going to be a flat out no. The time doesn't exist. Aaron may even lose his life. Looks like he actually got away with the skin of his teeth. A good attempt by Endpoint, but it felt like they could have just upped the pace somewhat and made it a little bit better in terms of speed. Weber just throwing out some, I'd say, typical UK drama at this. I'm not sure if drama's the most kind of the go-to call, but it's all UK players like to generally throw out the banter, I guess, is the most apt way of describing it. Which is a bit of a running trend for UK players, of course, and well, it presents its own challenges. Ever so patiently, Ezio really boosting up his teammate, the ADP, over the tips of that smoke, and that is a very smart smoke. Whether it bears any rewards is going to be a whole different question. As Ratsnake first to kick things off with a very aggressive Well, trying to follow up with another frag on towards B, but it's not quite going to happen. And look at the positioning from Endpoint. 3 players stacked on over towards this B site. Weber has sold this one absolutely perfectly. Huge stuff coming out from Weber in terms of mind games, and Endpoint clearly always paranoid that the B site is going to find itself being overrun. Of course, that's not actually going to be the case in any way, shape, or form. You can look at that bomb. It's actually over towards mid, and I like this from Fish. It's very much undedicated, very much passive. And they get to really just bide their time. Themselves nice and set up, and try and force the hand as Weber. Going to find another frag on towards Ezio, certainly stepping up in a huge manner. Outsnake there to find the first, of course. So now Endpoint, their numbers rapidly dwindling. Mighty Max will try and claw things back. Connects a shot on towards Rattlesnake, respectively. Now B-side, they went with so much effort to hold. Oh, they've now just done all but given it up. The bomb is going to find its way down. Gives it very much easy for Fish to basically take this one, because as much as Endpoint have 3 men left standing, going for this is, well, it would always be crazy. They have 2 AWPs in play. They have the rifle on Jake, which Jake could have done some work, but they're pretty much relying on Philo and Max, if they were to retake it, to find themselves some picks. And, well, frankly, finding picks with just those double ADPs on towards the B site, a pretty tough ask as is. Then you add into the equation Fish's positions and the fact just how strong their afterplants are, and how kind of rapid the bomb timer is currently being. There really is no chance at all. So, looking at the economy of Fish, it's really starting to build itself up, and it's been a bit of a rough ride for them. You just have to take into account that Endpoint have been, relatively speaking, starting to come back from this one. That's a shot from Max, straight through the door on towards Weber. So certainly some damage being inflicted, but it is still in that same respective scoreline, 10-4. And I was a little bit worried, looking at the scoreline fairly early on, a bit of a almost 8-2 from what it felt like. But at Endpoint, they certainly are bringing it back to a much more respectable CT portion. 4 rounds. It's a lot for them to work with. They need to ideally try and play for the 5th, which would be pretty good for them if they can get the setups right, but they have been constantly giving these picks in favor of Fish quite a lot. And one thing that seems to be common with Endpoint is once they lose the first pick, they seem to kind of struggle to make things work. Philo going to go aggressive, connects a shot on towards Cryptix, now closes the door, swings on back over towards Card. Ezio looking for a frag towards Nick. Also desperately low. The Mole gets an option to go for the second shot, makes it work, takes him down. Brings him back to a 4 versus 4. Weber going back to his old faithful, just spamming through the smoke. He's been doing this quite a lot through the series, so it is almost quite common at this point, which is why he's not really being able to bear too many rewards as Aaron will get aggressive and take down Philo. Jake to follow up with another. You can hear that noise just rattling on away, makes a second on towards Rattlesnake as well, so going to be calling back a man advantage, but Aaron doing some serious work. Imi coming in from behind with the Famous, leaving it all down to just what one player, Weber. Max just too quick on the trigger, holding the angle over towards Carr and knocking him down a peg. So overall, I'd say this is something that they can actually work with in the grand scheme of things. I'd say that as much as it is a pretty shaky kind of CT side half, Cache is one of those maps that very much so swings almost a bit of a 50-50 element, and I would personally say that Cache is actually T-sided in the grand scheme of things, especially when you kind of add in meta to it, which, judging by a lot of the ways that especially teams in the UK have been playing, it does kind of sit towards that T-sided bandwagon. So I wouldn't say this is almost impossible for Endpoint to work with, especially now that they are swinging onto that favoured side. If they can find themselves a pissed round, it would be rather huge in terms of clawing this one back. But it's all just potentials, and, well, why talk about potentials when we can see it right in front of us live? In terms of buys, it's going to be a triple set of Kevlar. Jake Philo and Max the ones to be buying them up, and we're seeing a bit more of a utility-heavy play coming out from this T side this time around. On the flip side, Fish only opting for one man, Weber, to buy up a smoke and double flash. Down. A couple of shots will be exchanged. Weber going to give away his position, but falling back to this angle is very, very smart. Gives him a lot more opportunity to work with in terms of keeping himself going. Rattlesnake going to mock him from behind now, doing some damage, finds himself a pick, gets himself the information to work with that they were trying to counter boost. Max to find another frag on towards Aaron. Ezio at this point, his goal just to do as much damage as he physically can. He knows that he's practically dead, but at this point, it doesn't even matter how much he does Jake, and Philo popping off at a huge manner. Ezio, they're connected on towards Weber, and Endpoint just demoralizing Fish in this pistol round, walking all over them. Rattlesnake is going to try and respond, finding himself 2 apiece, looking for the third, of course. But he's effectively playing for the ace, and this is going to be a pretty tough ask. He does connect the shot. Now looking for just Ezio and Philo, but he has no kit. Well, the longer they play the time, the harder this will get, as he will tag down Ezio just a 42 HP, a smithering of what he originally had. He will go aggressive, but not before he gets led to his death. So a 6-10 scoreline. Fish going to be placed on a bit of a pedestal in the grand scheme of things. Kind of did like the fact that the clutch was went for. Rattlesnake looking to do some work of his own, but overall, it's a bit of an interesting pistol round, and it still ends in Team Endpoint's fashion. And well, Team Endpoint are an interesting team in general, especially when you add in kind of the roster shuffle mix. It's affected them, I'd say, in a pretty blatant manner in terms of just a couple of flaws strategically speaking. But it's one thing that really is clear: they have an abundance of aim, and that is working out for them here and there. It will give them a clear-cut advantage in this round as well off the back of that pistol round win, because they have the UMPs, they have the rifles and such. Imi even going as far to wield the MAC-10, which is a pretty unruly T-sided SMG, and you can do so much damage with that in terms of making some money. With Weber and Mole looking like they're going to be going back to the old-fashioned days, going for a run boost, but Ezio too hot on the trigger, knocking them both down respectively with some smooth headshots. Looking to take it one step further, as now they are barreling out towards the B site. Should be able to get themselves a clear-cut bomb plant, and I would be surprised, and I would feel like it's a mistake from Endpoint at this point if they took any losses, because frankly put, you look at Fish, it's almost just as I say that, Rattlesnake gets to curve a shot on towards Imi. I don't feel like they should have taken any losses. It's something they can manage, but if they take even a single more frag, it's almost just handing something unequivocally back into the hands of Fish. So Cryptix and Aaron, they've got themselves, well, just Cryptix now. He's got himself the max at least. That's something for him to work with, but they are all led to their deaths, their graves. Very comfy. And it's something that they are going to find themselves sitting in as Endpoint get themselves a 7, but we aren't quite going to be seeing any terms of response just yet from Fish. This is much more of a weaker round, because they won't really be able to invest anything. So it's just going to be that eco overall with a bit of pistols here and there trying to do some damage. But for the most part, just going to be clear-cut USBs, P2000s, and the like. It's been a bit of an interesting one so far. Looking to see what Endpoint can bring to the table. It's really not been anything too crazy just yet. I'm looking to see what they can do up against the buy round of Fish. That for me is really going to be the kind of the setting stone on whether they can come back, because I do feel like they're quite talented individually, but the one thing that Fish have going for them is you have someone like Rattlesnake on your team who is a pretty impeccable kind of caller in the grand scheme of things, but Imi is pretty much the same, but it just feels like Fish may have a chance to try and be this structured 5-man squad. Of course, probably with what they have been practicing, and Ezio will actually fall in this scenario, so some damage being inflicted. Aaron and Rattlesnake are going to be the 2 CTs left remaining. Aaron soon led to his death by Jake, and Rattlesnake now the last man remaining. And it will be, just to crack him off, will be led back to his death once again. So following suit with the rest of his team, and we look back to that point that I mentioned, something I was talking quite a lot about. I want to see the buy round of both of these teams just facing up against each other. It's going to be pretty damn important in the grand scheme of things, and well, what I'm expecting from the CT side, I'd like to see them go just for a fairly sensible default, maybe even a 2-on-2, maybe a bit of pressure towards mid. Team Endpoint haven't really kind of shown what they want to do. What they are doing is going flat aggressive towards B, and this could catch them completely off guard, because Weber, he's this one-man anchor, got himself the M4, but Nisa got absolutely huge, finds himself to Aaron to find another. Jake eventually will find himself the trade. Cryptix looking to respond from Venter, but actually Molotov going to be a bit of a blunder, not quite going to the intended spot, as Mole going to be coming in from heaven, trying to deny the bomb plant, but it's not quite going to happen. The bomb now going to be ticking on away. Max going to be looking to do some damage. Jake there to aid, of course. They are going to be looking to get themselves in towards CT, but that CT push is almost just a bit uneventful, as Rattlesnake there to hold the angle, knocking down on towards the doors of Jake, leaving him back down on an island all alone. A million paces to look, and unfortunately led to his death by Aaron. they took their sweet time, just making sure they were looking for things, and they actually lacked quite a lot of kits in the grand scheme of things. I was pleasantly surprised to see that it wasn't actually the fuse being done by that kit, but it does mean that Fish, they've got themselves to 11th, and they've actually made the buy round work, and they aren't quite out of a 6 just yet. They have to deal with the fact that Endpoint, they can get themselves going still with a relatively solid buy, but this next round actually could prove to be a rather fatal factor for Endpoint, because if they lose this one, it gets Fish 12, and from there we're expecting to even see the 13th, and well, they are starting to cut things relatively close. Maybe going to be looking to do some pressure over towards the B site. The smoke is relatively smart. Going to aid him in terms of this push. Not necessarily because of that smoke placed by the CT side of things, but that smoke actually is an opportunity for the CT side almost to go for a bit of a one-way, depending on which way you peek into it from a D side perspective. So I can see why he went for it. It's arguable. By the way, very much patience coming out from this D side. They really don't want to kind of show themselves relatively early. It's really right down to the wire. Of course, a casual recap for those who didn't get to witness the first map during this kind of lull period is 16-14 in favor of Endpoint in the first map of Overfast. Of course, we are currently on cash, and it's been a bit of a slower map. We saw some nice stuff from Endpoint at the start. Fish really now looking to up their game, and they've done an impeccable job of keeping it going. We saw a couple of huge rounds coming in from Rattlesnake and Weber and the like. Aaron having a bit of an impact of his own. It's certainly proven to be the close game that was originally expected. In terms of this round, it will be Mole to open things up with a frag on towards Imi. Ezio clocking on 100% in his position, going to be going for the pre-fire. The Mole's going to pop one out, but somehow Mole gets away just left standing, and that is a huge flaw now in terms of this D side, because they've just lost any opportunity to find themselves a man advantage back into their court. Cryptics to claim the life of Max. One by one, they seem to be falling, getting knocked over as they're still perched over towards B. Going to peek right into the crosshair of Mole as he goes for a bit of aggressive pick and makes it work. Jake and Philo themselves the AWP, they've got themselves the AK-47, so a lot of potential to do some work. Philo going to get ever so close to landing the shots. Mole and Cryptic still too hot on the trigger to do the damage as Fish now get themselves to 12. And this is kind of what I was talking about. Once they get to 12, unless we see some big force up coming in from Endpoint, which I would say is actually not necessarily a huge point for them, we can expect to see a bit of a save. Maybe some P250, some pistols here and there, but overall this should now be Fish picking up their 13th round, because as much as we've seen it spread through the qualifiers, these pistols doing some huge work. In terms of kind of what we've been seeing from a lot of these UK games, a lot of these teams play each other quite a lot. The pistols, they don't really tend to be able to do too much work. What we usually see is the rifles just kind of segmenting, segregating and segmenting each player, cutting them off one by one, and very much individual peaks, which if you haven't realized, individual peaks with a Tech 9 long range against the rifle generally always leads to your death, so it's a pretty bleak one. But you could try and play for some information. It does help you out somewhat, give you an opportunity to do some work. Of course, it is going to be relatively patient so far. Some damage being, well, scraping on by, actually not quite going to land the shots. Looked like potentially could have made that one work, as now Endpoint going back to being this passive style of team, which I do think it's a huge kind of ode to them, the fact they have just been so passive about the way they've been going. The problem with it is when you've got these kind of pistols, there are times when you should just kind of just go for it. You should just do everything you've got. Going to work out. Mole there, looks like he should be able to fall here, but a hands of Philo who will make it work with a close-range pistol shot, gaining himself that rifle. So it gives them an opportunity to try and play for a plant, but the bomb's still stuck over towards mid, and at this point it's just going to be a mop-up coming in. Trying to split off up towards the A site. The Fish still just too quick to knock them down. They get themselves to 13. So a 13-8 scoreline. We get to see a buy brought back to the table by Endpoint. But it's not necessarily too far gone for Endpoint just yet. They can still claw this one back, and I'm going to go back to my kind of a point I made right from the get-go when talking about this. Philo with an AWP could be very, very impactful in terms of opening up the picks. We've not necessarily seen anything too crazy with him, and if he doesn't actually get some presence across the map, it could be rather uncomfortable. Ezio going to go for a pretty huge flash, and you might not realize just how important that was, but when you see the push coming in from the CT side, it does make it, well, much more valuable as it slows it down and actually forces them to head back towards checkers and go back to being much slower as a team. As Rattlesnake peeking towards Squeaky, looking to claim the life with his counterpart. It's not quite going to be taking place just yet as Cryptics perched on top of this box. This is a very nice angle to hold. How has he even got there without even being contested? Imi just being allowed completely out on towards the site. Eventually Aaron will claim his life. Cryptics to open up with a second frag. But I'm so shocked the fact that Imi actually got away with that. Just even getting to MBK without being taken down really just makes a statement in itself. It's coming down to 55 seconds. We need to see something from Endpoint in terms of maneuverability. They have to get themselves onto a site and play for that plant, and the problem they've got is they're just giving away so much information from the Fish side. The bomb is going to make its way through towards Toxic, but there's already two people there ready waiting. Weber from Heaven to get the information. At this point, they know it's going to be a guaranteed B push. Weber now actually verifying that map by spotting the bomb. Ezio going to find himself one pick, opens up with a second on towards Weber. So some huge plays being made by Ezio, but how much is he willing to do? Needs to pull off a 1 versus 3 as Rattlesnake claims the life of Jake. But can he pull it off? They're going to be spamming away with the AWP. Kind of going to look at Ezio in this scenario as he will claw back the life of Rattlesnake, brings it to a 1 versus 2, just playing around the smoke. But the minute it fades, Cryptix will be able to claim his life, and it's getting oh so close. But Cryptix, he clocks onto the fact, spots the traces, and comes up trumps with a round on the Fish side of things. So now 14 is where they find themselves. Endpoint looking very, very on the cusp of losing this second map. And that would force us over to Cobblestone. Cobblestone is going to be a bit of a telltale map, and we can get into that one when we get there. But for now, you look at the economy of Fish, you go, well, it's exceptionally built up, very, very well played from them in terms of getting it going. Endpoint, on the other hand, they can keep on forcing. They've got the full loss bonus, of course, swinging in their side. But unfortunately, that stride is only going to get them so far. And right now, as much as they were, had a nice start, they don't appear to be able to make anything work at all. It's getting pretty damn rough for them. And if they can't even squeeze that around now, then I'd be inclined to say this is as good as done. So we may as well just skip ahead to that third map. Nice and patiently so far. Seems to be a bit of a kind of buzzword at this point for this cast, is just patiently, because Endpoint really just so damn slow in the way they kick things out, making sure that they use the full kind of 155 to their advantage. More going to be peeking out with the AWP, just trying to look for the life of Imi, which could actually work out in his favor depending on how Imi wants to go about things. Is still just going to be ever so close towards Toxic. And if he peeks out at any pretty much point from now, Mole being unable to go for that shot. But it also depends on Mole and how much he wants to do, because if he just sits here and he almost peeks up towards Ben, he could have found himself a frag, but now he just kind of almost screws up his teammate, gets swallowed out, and now they know he's there. Jake going to catch him off guard, and Endpoint, they're using aggression to get themselves on towards the site, the brute force technique, and it has worked out in a huge manner. We see a bit of a dart come out from Cryptix, manages to get himself a frag for his troubles, but it's not going to be too impactful, as Izzy will quick to trade things back, leaving Aaron and Rattlesnake all alone, 2 versus 4. Looking for those frags, of course. They're not quite going to be giving up a smoke, probably popped in a more defensive shroud, but at this point, they are still trying to retake with this AWP on towards the B site, which it's great for finding a couple of long-range picks, but it's exceptionally difficult for Rattlesnake to try and make work. But Aaron, he will drop down, finds himself a frag on towards Philo, eventually going to get traded out by Imi. Needing Rattlesnake out to do it all. And Endpoint, they just aren't quite going to let him cut it, taking him down, bringing it even closer. Maybe trying to prove the point that we aren't quite out of the woods just yet from Team Endpoint as they get themselves back to 9, ending the slew of 4 in a row from Fish, which is a pretty damn good scoreline in the grand scheme of things. A lot for them to play with. Of course, Fish, they're now playing for the next 2. That's pretty much all they need. And I do thought it's only apt to go back to the kind of performance of Aaron, for example, who's been stepping up chumps for Fish in this matchup. 20-14 is pretty damn relevant in comparison to the rest of the scoreboards we're witnessing so far. And I didn't think it was 20-14. I reckon it was 20-11. I believe it. Didn't quite get to catch it. Small just going to be teetering on the edge of vent, looking for some information again. And this is pretty risky from Fish. Very much biased towards mid, but it could pay some huge dividends depending on what strategy Endpoint employ. Philo just playing in his ever-faithful spot. He's on top of boost with their AWP, going to be bearing down on towards mid, and little does he know just how much presence Fish are emphasizing on mid. If he knew, I have a feeling we'd be seeing a little more, but we aren't seeing any aggression or any information peaks from him at all. He's just going to be holding that angle, and because of the fact that Fish have been very, very smart just to hug the right side, they aren't going to be giving away anything at all, which pretty much mounts the pressure on Max and Jake when they decide to go for the entry, which looks like it's going to be coming very, very soon, as those smokes will pop off, creating a bit of a walling effect, it seems. Could have been actually a little bit deeper over towards White Box or Connector. Who knows at this point, as Max is going to push out, takes down Cryptix, but the repeat going to come in from Mole, finds himself the first, now looking for the second, takes down Jake, potentially even can find the third. The flash is still going to be doing some damage. Finally going to be holding the angle with the AWP, but it's all just a little too late. Rattlesnake is right behind them, and a huge round being pulled out from Fish. They pulled for a risky strategy, but it's bearing some huge dividends as Mole get himself over towards Vent. Endpoint, they found themselves a quick trade off the back of Ezio. But their still work is going to be completely cut out. That nade is going to be pretty damn huge. Locking Rattlesnake down to a perfect 50 HP, but the connector push is going to be rolling around. This could be beautiful. Another frag grenade to come in now. Rattlesnake just 16 HP. Mole to claim the life of Leaving it all on the shoulders of one man. Mole still going to go. The second shot goes to the spray down, but Imi gonna claim the frag, which it keeps Endpoint in it. Credit to them. Very, very nice round though coming out from Fish. We can't take that one away from them at all. The setup towards mid was so smart, and most importantly, giving Philo no room at all in terms of information to play with. Of course, going into this round, now you kind of have to look at Endpoint. Not only are they on 10, they're looking for their 11th, and the response we're going to be witnessing, well, it's just going to be Deagles, and that's a pretty damn rough storyline in itself when you're kind of just trusting on the Deagles to do the work. They could find themselves a couple of peaks, which in fairness, Weber is going to be able to pull off. Imi quick to trade things back nonetheless, and we shouldn't really be seeing too much contest being made from these pistols. The fact that Weber was able to open things up is all well and good, but that should be about it. If we see anything else, it does get to that kind of line of this is pretty ridiculous, but it's not really going to be happening just yet. Aaron may be a player that can do some damage in terms of highway. Philo just going to restore things back to normality by knocking down Cryptics as he tries to go for a bit of an aggressive push through BMA and up into the portions of mid, and that pretty much means that all of the pressure is over to the A side. Mole is going to just flick on around to connect the life on towards him. He gains himself a rifle to play with. However, on point, they know that the stack is kind of lying over towards A, bit more over towards mid. So they should better get the bomb down fairly uncontested. Weber is nearby with the Deagle, but well, let's have a bit of trust. Let's rely on the fact that Endpoint aren't going to be ridiculous to enable Weber to peek out from heaven through a smoke and openly face with the Deagle. That would be pretty damn ridiculous, and I'm trusting in Endpoint to play normal Counter-Strike at this point to not let that one happen. So they aren't just going to be biding their time, still just rather patiently. Molotov is going to pop off now, fully denying Weber any opportunity as he will just get burnt away. Aaron going to get up close and personal, giving Philo an opportunity to spam on away with the Glock. Just making use of that sidearm, which the fact he has a Glock, even though he's willing to do, is a hilarious point in itself. Hoping to see him kind of upgrade to a P250 or a Deagle and the like, which we can actually see him pick up from the dead body left on the floor. And well, now it is just Mole. He's got himself the rifle. Best opportunity is just to save it. Not necessarily going to be hugely impactful, but it's something for them to play with in terms of stabilizing their economy. Be a rather fruitful aid in terms of something he can drop as Endpoint. Back to 11, so 14 to 11. Of course, Endpoint, them bringing this back is actually much more important than Fish, because Endpoint, they won the first map in 16-14 fashion, so it was very, very close. But if they do bring this back, off the back of them winning the first map, of course, that means that they get themselves through to the grand finale, which is a pretty big feat in itself, and we're basically one win away in terms of a BO3 series from getting that trip over towards Kiev. Well, it's all well and good to theorize. They actually need to pull off the comeback first, and in order to do that, they need 3 more rounds, plus the 2 then required to win. Snake already getting things up on towards him, straight through the smoke. That is just always heartbreaking to witness as Weber finds another frag on towards Jake. Ezio, he will respond. So a quick trade nonetheless. But it isn't going to be too impactful just yet, especially with the fact that man advantage still sits towards the court of Fish 4 versus 3. While it can be looking to claw something over towards mid. The position of Mole is actually relatively smart. He's quite pushed up. He's got the crossfire kind of going with his teammate Snake with the AWP. Want to maybe see a bit more repeat coming from Cryptex, who potentially could do quite a lot of work, especially now that that smoke has just gone down. He could go for the safer option though. And well, the fact he didn't peek there means that Philo gets an opportunity to go for a peek himself and takes down Aaron. So does hand an advantage back to a 3 versus 3. But then he could do some work towards Kara. He's going to do that. Goes to the peek, takes down Philo. The nade going to land on towards the slate. Going to do a scraping amount of damage. It's not quite a huge amount, but it's enough to be impactful. By this time, gets the information of Max, and at this point I need to see Rattlesnake push up close and personal, aided by his teammate Mole. Where are you? You're kind of out in the woods right now. Get up close, help your team. Rattlesnake Max and leaving it all down to one man Ezio, who's clutched a scenario like before, bear in mind, but Rattlesnake still too quick on the trigger to take him down. Gonna pick up that AWP, finds the defuse, and Fish now get themselves on towards map point, trying to force our hand, take us to that third map that is Cobblestone. As Endpoint, they now have to be absolutely flawless, and it's all well and good relying on them to be flawless. They do have one thing that bodes rather well for them, which is their economy, aside from Jake, who's kind of the one letdown factor, per se. But in the grand scheme of things, this is pretty damn good for Fish at this point. They don't necessarily have as much of a clear-cut economy as Endpoint, but a good opportunity for them to do quite a lot of work, especially the fact that Rattlesnake picked up the AWP, which is just a smart and obvious call in itself. Just giving them an ability to really play for those picks, and, well, if they screw up, Cobblestone, here we come. Aaron going to be getting himself up on Shroud, which they haven't actually used this much at all. So this is almost kind of a sign that they are just going to be going for almost a bit of a cheese round at this point, because it doesn't matter how they win the round as long as they win it. So if they go for something off the cuff, something random, then Endpoint just won't check for, they don't expect. That's enough. That's enough to really just put the nail in the coffin, so to speak. It will be Mol to open things up with a frag on towards him. He's still looking for Aaron because Max is really biding his time. He's got a teammate there to help him as well. But it is Jake over towards Squeaky, so that's a bit less impactful in terms of playing a Shroud. But if Jake pushes on out, it still gives Aaron an opportunity to swivel around 90 degrees to the right and claim his life as well. And you kind of add into context the Cryptic as they're holding the crossfire. This is relatively smart positions coming out from Fish. It all comes down to one factor and one factor alone. Will Endpoint clock onto this when they push out towards this site, as they are very much getting themselves ready? The bomb will be going to be that second man towards Squeaky, and well, that is not necessarily a great call. I want to see that bomb on the back of a player such as Philo, who's over towards main, or even Ezio, so to speak, sorry. As now if that Molotov does go down, it means the bomb has to run on right through as the smoke will pop. Molotov now going to be going down in return. Now it has to push that fire, and with 30 seconds left, they are just going to be biding their time, but they know the hand has been forced. Aaron just going to be huge trigger control. Finally bites the bullet, gets the first. Looking for a second. Cryptic's going to pick up one with the pistol. Mole to find another one towards Jake. And now it's all on fire. One man at a 1 versus 5. Connects the first shot towards Aaron. Cryptic's still going to be hunting for the frag with a pistol, but he's just playing ever so daintily. Philo just caught out in the sticks. Gets some tougher red container. Going for the elevated angle. Snake able to peek on round, bend the shot, and makes it work. So 16-11 in favor of Fish123. They make it work in this second map, which means our hand has been forced. We are going to that third map, which will be Cobblestone, and it should be a fairly interesting one at that. But for now, I think you guys heard enough of my voice. I know I kind of want to break, go get some water and stuff. So my name is Flakes. Thank you for watching WESG. Of course, we'll be back very, very soon with Cobblestone. But in the meantime, I'll hand you over to Sasha, our wonderful producer, who's going to give you some music and some adverts.